Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome to all of you to the 6th edition of the CMS Zeit conference in Davos. It's almost a tradition now, and thank you to all of you for being here. I would also address many thanks to Rainer Esser, CEO of Zeit, to him and his team for the excellent work and for making this at all possible for us. Rainer, it is a pleasure and it is an honor to work with you on this project with a person of your quality and a company of that prestige. Thank you very much. So about the theme, challenges and opportunities in the world of tomorrow. That is a vast, very interesting subject, of course, very broad. It is high on the list of discussions here in Davos at the WEF, and actually the Global Risk Report for 2020 has been released very recently, and it contains an impressive list of risks: extreme weather, climate action failure, natural disasters, biodiversity loss, human-made environmental disasters, data fraud and theft, cyber attacks, water crisis, global governance failure, and asset bubble. And as you can hear, climate and environmental risks are obviously dominating, and as we all know, we can observe in today's world a lot of casualties on businesses and individuals caused by extreme weather conditions. And all of that in a context also of growing demography in many places of the world. And this growing demography in itself puts an additional pressure on resources, on the production of energy, on agriculture, food, healthcare, infrastructures, waste management, and on and on. And this is the world we're living in, and to that we have to add everything that's going on in the field of technology and science in general. And technology carries very nice opportunities, definitely is one of the keys for fixing some of our problems, but it also bears the challenges of its own, such as cyber security, but not only. Individuals, but especially businesses, have to adapt, have to innovate almost in real time or die. Also, workforces are at stress because some of the workforces are replaced by artificial intelligence or robotics and the like. And new jobs must be created. There are fantastic opportunities, but those new jobs require new skills, and those new skills require new resources in education. So yet another challenge. What can we expect and what must we do? From the top down, from governments or other public bodies. They start in some countries to tackle the issue really seriously, but still governments are faced with short-term objectives of the requests from their people to get a better purchasing power, to get more healthcare, less taxes, more comfort, more leisure, and also the same people want more care for the environment, which is to some extent a bit in contradiction. So governments have to face short-term objectives, and they are struggling with issues such as the debt that very much serves the financing of expenses rather than investments. And so it is difficult for governments to look at a long-term sustainability program. And so what can we expect from businesses? Probably a lot, because businesses are pointed at as being part of the cause of some of our problems. But definitely businesses are probably the key, and they have the answers and the ability to fix these issues, and I believe it will be very interesting to hear from world-class business leaders from Allianz, from Bayer, from Palantir, to what their vision on these various aspects actually are. More modestly, as CMS, as a global law firm, has also its commitments and its obligations. We aim at serving our clients, helping them make decisions in an increasingly complex environment, legal environment, especially internationally. And we are committed to understand the business of our clients. We are committed to partner with them and together with them, not only to face the future, but to shape it. And then there is, I think, also a very important role that needs to be played by quality media, such as the Zeit. Social networks are great. They provide and produce very positive things, but not only. There are also negative aspects. And for instance, some progress, scientific progresses, are sometimes bashed by groups and social networks, distorting information to the public, to the people, and sometimes preventing the use of technologies or trying to prevent the use of technologies that actually could help solve some of the issues. So it is important, the role of the media is really important. Is it said and written enough that globally humanity has never been in a better shape than it is today? Of course, there are people here and there in regions of the world struggling, suffering, dying. But globally, the situation has never been as good as it is today. In terms of life expectation, healthcare, mortality, etc., to name only a few of these issues. And also saying that businesses are in the center of the future fixing of some of the issues. Over history, we have seen that a nation with a good economy, with a booming economy, is usually a happy nation. And what does it take, actually? What values does it take to have a sound economy? It takes bold, entrepreneurial and pioneering spirit. It takes hard work, but it also takes optimism. And I think that altogether we have a duty to convey optimism and energy, especially to the younger generations on this planet. Because with all the news they have, if we only convey pessimism, we won't make progress. So I think it's a joint responsibility to build trust and optimism for the future, and apocalypse is not now, and it is not anytime soon. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, you've immediately noticed that this dashing gentleman, he is a real cosmopolitan through and through. In the international world of legal text, when it comes to great legal transaction, this gentleman is kind of James Bond. James Bond in solving most intricate international legal tax issues for his transnational clients. He served for CMS, the most prestigious law firm, for 35 years. CMS having 8,000 employees in 40 countries and 73 offices. Last year, they even opened an office in Nairobi and in Joburg, South Africa, so they are globally connected and can provide global solutions for their big clients. I'm very delighted that you are here. Merci mille fois, cher Pierre-Sébastien. You all look so well dressed, and you look full of spirit and full of vigor, and you all look forward to an interesting reception with illustrious guests. Our first guest is a lady, a super lady, Laura Rudas. She was elected to Austrian National Council at the early age of 26. Then she became Federal Executive Director and then youngest ever Secretary General, where she served for 5 years. Then she attended a seminar at Stanford University, and she decided to stay there and to join the coolest, the most mysterious, the most secret startup in Silicon Valley. The name of this company, the origin is from Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings. And the most famous data program is called Gotham. You all know Gotham City, the hometown of Batman. And there she is Chief Strategy Officer right now at Palantir, and there she makes science fiction become reality. Jochen Wegener is Editor-in-Chief of Zeit Online, and in talking with Jochen, Laura will for the first time unveil to this exclusive group of people here all the secrecies and all the mysteries of Palantir, and in particular, and she will disclose just to us which secret services around the world work with Gotham. And if Jochen does a really good job, she will also share with us her weak points, her weak moments when she's sitting there in the Californian diaspora. Dearly misses the Austrian dumpling soup, Mozartkugeln, balls in Vienna, Kaiserschmarrn. And after the session with Jochen and Laura, there will be a pause, and then please come back. It will be as dramatic as with Laura. Then Werner Baumann and Oliver Bethke, two really heavyweights of the economy worldwide, will then talk with Uwe Häuser. 3 alpha tiers. You should be here then. And now, welcome to Laura and Jochen.
Why did I actually accept that?
I don't know. Sorry. So reveal everything now.
Okay.
This is, as Rainer mentioned, Laura. She's Executive Vice President, Strategy at Palantir. She used to be really famous Austrian politician 5 years ago, and she basically totally disappeared for 5 years. She's almost never on stage, I think 2 or 3 times in all these 5 years.
Yeah, and look
so
what
we
happens
feel really honored. She just can't talk because Palantir is a really interesting company. It's one of the most expensive unicorns we have on this planet, with a valuation of between 20 and 40 million. And it's not profitable by a billion. Did I say million? Sorry. Billion. It's funded by Peter Thill and Alex Karp, who's running around downstairs in the pavilion of Palantir, who almost never talked in the last years. Early investor InQtel, of CIA's investment arm, and they are doing, and you will explain it later, big data analytics, like developing software that helps find patterns in huge amounts of data. You track down Bin Laden, but you can't confirm that. Today you claim, so Alex Karp claims you are preventing a terror attack every week with your software all over the planet. You're also working with the German state, I learned. You help to verify that Iran is not building nuclear weapons. You help banks to detect fraud. You help Airbus to find failures in their supply chain. Actually, 80% of your business is private. It's not public sector. And Palantir is one of the most discreet and secretive companies in the world. So And you used to be in Austrian politics. So the first thing you wrote an essay about this in Handelsblatt just recently. How was it to go from a socialist Austrian politician to becoming a Silicon Valley entrepreneur? So how do you look at this world with your Austrian eyes?
Yeah, so like, so I actually, like, when I resigned from politics, like after 10 years, I thought, like, I had a desire after more pragmatism, right? And I thought that I would find that at the West Coast, but I had no clue what actually shall I do after politics. So I did this sabbatical at Stanford, a one-year program, and I was scared off by the West Coast mentality of, like, we find new business models and disrupt existing ones, and the arrogance, right? And then I was in a lucky situation to meet for the Bay Area very exotic company with a even more exotic, like, founder and CEO, Alex Karp and Palantir.
He's a former neo-Marxist, to be precise, and
we are fighting
socialist.
About
and he has a
these terms,
PhD with
like,
Habermas.
Look,
so
he did his PhD at Frankfurt School. He was a student of Habermas, and he did the PhD in German, right? Like, you see how I struggle with speaking English. He did his PhD in German, so it's like, you can see it's a different kind of, like, the usual Silicon Valley person. He's different, but that Mendel somehow, like, through the whole company, so they do not feel that they should, like, disrupt industries, but they want to transform it. They are a little bit like bridging the worlds between software, but also like traditional old industry and companies. They like embrace inhomogeneity and bipolarity, and so I feel like it's good to be a little between the worlds, and so I managed to have best out of both worlds. So I'm in Silicon Valley, but also half of the time in Europe, because that's like a strong market of ours.
We will talk about the ethics of your business soon, but can you describe in 5 sentences what you are actually doing at Palantir?
No, I'm joking.
So, thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Sorry, Rainer.
So let me start with what we are not doing, okay? So we do not bring data, we do not have data, we do not take data. We are not even a data company. We're actually a software company that helps organizations and institutions to understand their data better, to drive better decisions. So we're kind of like data logistic platform in highly regulated and complex environments. So institutions and organizations rarely succeed in making most out of the data. Why? Because it's unstructured and through scale also unmanageable. And so we build, we bring them together in a unite platform, accessible for authorized subject matter experts. And like easy, like when you understand your data better, you make better decisions, you have better outcomes. So if you if you increase production, you produce more cars. If you are more efficient in supply chain, then you save money. If you understand customer markets better, you sell more, and so on and so on. So we help organizations and institutions to understand their own already accessible data better. And why does it? We will come to that, but yeah.
But you do
Is it understandable? Because it's not easy
totally
to understand. Okay.
So you do not collect data yourself. You
Exactly.
only work for companies who have data.
Exactly, and the data stays where they are, and we help institutions and organizations that they use their data more efficient and make more out of their data landscape. But we are not bringing in new data.
I was wondering if Donald Trump is here, and is your business becoming easier since he got elected, or more complicated? So you're working for all the 3-letter agencies in the US, for example?
All over the world in Western democracies, not just in the US, also in Europe, and I think that also answers your questions.
You don't care?
We don't care. Like, we are a data operating system. It's like it's not on us to decide it's a good or it's a bad government. As you can imagine, I have an opinion.
What's your opinion?
But it's like, I'm still a social democrat, and I
so
support
you hate
secretly.
what you do.
we are an operating system, and I do think it's very important that Western democracies use their data better to become more efficient. And I think that's in a democracy key, that governments, no matter that governments that are elected are working efficiency. That's like it's a need. So especially also in the security field, that make decision based on data.
The elected governments become more complicated, I have the feeling. So especially when you look at the US or other countries. So one example at least your business is watched more closely these days. So there are protests going on week after week for quite some time of students who protest at universities, do not go to Palantir, mainly because so the US government is using your software to find the parents of children who immigrated to the US, and so that's huge coverage everywhere in investigative reports and stuff like that. And so there are protests in front of the Palantir headquarter and wherever. So
on micro, we are not working with this department, but I want to answer it macro because you're not an American journalist, so you will have a second and a third question, so I will answer it. Because what you are describing is, like, as I said, like, we are working with Western democracies all over the world, not just in the US, also in Europe, especially the Nordics, and so on and so on. And we do that under the rules of law. Does it mean that everything that is like legal is also legitimate? No, and you have, when we are aware that we have a very powerful tool, or we give our partners a very powerful tool in their hands, so it's important to assess every single case, and I can tell you, not just in the government field, also with our commercial customers. We are working very close with the subject matter experts with our customers, and we have a whole team. It's called privacy team. It's looking into case per case for the areas that are gray, right? Where it's legal allowed, but is it legitimate? Again, it's not just in the field of government, but also in the commercial sector.
Can you mention projects you declined to do?
So sometimes it's use cases with customers, many of them in the commercial sector, and it's not about declining, but it's finding. We are also declining. We declined to work for a tobacco company and so on, but it's like we very often say together with our customers also no to things where you are already able to, but you don't want to. Again, it's a we are aware that it's a very sensitive area, and I think there's no general answer, but you need to assess case per case, and you need to look at it very carefully.
Yes, so Alex Karp said tech CEOs shouldn't be making politics or policy, which is in a way it's true, but if you're building tools that can be used in a good way or a bad way, and sometimes you just have to decide if you deliver weapons to special states or not, or it can be used
so
as
we
a weapon.
decided to work with Western democracies that are elected, and I do not think actually that it is on Palo Alto companies to decide and be more important than the society or the voters. But it is a clear decision that we work with Western democracies.
And how do you make sure, if your clients work with really private data, we come back later to that because there's a great example about cancer research, for example. How do you make sure that my private data, if it's aggregated in your database, is not used in the wrong way so that it stays private? I learned that much complexity of your business goes into thinking how you can make sure that these private data sets stay private, even when you look at broad data mountains all the time.
Exactly. Like from day one of founding the company and building the company and the product, or the two products, it was like a focus, like how can you support institutions to use their data more efficient, and at the same time saving individual freedom and privacy rights.
How does that work?
Like that's actually something that tech can solve, right? Like controlled access, transparency, and who is changing what information, who is seeing what information, and so on and so on. That's also key, and we will come later to it, in the commercial sector when it's about like building these B2B platforms, right? Because when you want to have cross-industrial collaborations, you need to enable competing companies to collaborate in a controlled way. And here I think software can help. Too complicated. Okay.
Yeah. I want to share one fear with you I have. So I'm not a criminal, but I fear that at one point in time, I will show a data pattern that makes software like Palantir software, makes them think I'm doing something strangely. So you're looking always for similarities, very complex similarities, for example, and you track down people who are doing evil things. But you can also be tracked down just due to your data pattern. And then you have to prove that you just have a pattern and I did nothing wrong. So that's the new world we are going into now. And it's really complex to think about software and how you live in that world in the future.
Yeah.
Did you ever think about that? So you're producing that.
Look, it's not. I'm not saying it's a like that. It is not that it is an easy question. There is an easy answer. How like I do think that finding like having all data and like again what we don't do, right? We don't bring new information. It's like all the information you already have. But nowadays you would spend like 80% of your time comparing the information, collecting the information, 20% with analyzing it. And I do think also in the security field, or especially also, that the human should spend 80% of analyzing information and not like collecting it and comparing it. But we are not inventing new rules. But again, with the software and the powerful tool, you will be able to do more and new things. And so, of course, we need to think about where to apply it and where not to apply it. So I'm not saying that's not an important question, but I just wanted to clarify that it's not. We are not bringing in a new rule what to compare. It's like a state is saying in the field of security this data is allowed to share. It's not. We are not bringing in a new law.
So we need new laws and new politics to deal with that. And do you have the feeling that politicians understand what's going on? As a politician,
like, do we all understand what's going on?
No,
it's
really,
like, it's not on me to give like political advice. I do think that we should talk about data differently, right? We are always talking about the risk of data, risk of data, but we are never talking about the risk of not using data.
Okay.
The risk of not using data when it's about cancer research. The
Let's
risk
talk about
of
cancer
not,
research.
Or let me like. So I. Again, yeah. You're the moderator. No, you're right.
So just because you're mentioning cancer research, there was an interview in Handelsblatt some days ago with Merck CEO who famously mentioned Palantir because you have a joint venture with Merck and you try to build he said, you're building a Spotify for cancer research. What are you doing there?
So the reason why we actually never talk is because our customers are much better in it. So I will leave most of the explanation to Merck. So we try to bring all stakeholders in cancer research together and let them collaborate so that they improve the R&D to cancer research faster. So institutions, scientists, researcher, and so on. And like you mentioned Merck and Stefan Oschmann, who also talked about like the importance of collaboration and cross-industrial collaboration and institutions and organizations that maybe usually or sometimes even compete with each other need to collaborate in a very controlled way in certain fields. And we see that in aviation, when you look at Airbus, we see that in healthcare, with Merck, we see that in mobility, and like there's almost no industry where not like companies and institutions collaborate with each other.
Okay. Just to get the record straight, when will you go public?
Like an advantage
this
that
year,
I
next
have compared to Mr. Baumann, I'm not the CEO, so I do not need to answer that question.
Rainer, I'm so sorry.
No, you need to ask Harp and then tell me, please.
So what's the problem about going public these days? So you can't talk about this.
No, I can't. I
There are
told you, I
rumors
can't.
for
I can't.
years
I
now,
know.
so
Okay. But the truth is that we are not so focused on that. We are focused on building this B2, being the operator, powering more and more B2B platforms, improving our product, make it like the hurdle to use it, because like most of the users are non-engineers, are subject matter experts. We try to make them better in what they are already good in. So we are 80% of the company are engineers there, and we are not focused on that question.
Before we come to an end, I have to ask you about your essay. Again, you just recently wrote about, hey, Europe is not so bad. So all the Europe bashing and the industry is just stupid and it's not Silicon Valley and stuff. American CEOs could learn a lot from European companies. Oh, yeah. What exactly?
So, like my feeling is that the last decade, Europe was like dominated by fear, right? Like we were, and I can say we were afraid of like AI, China, Valley, data, whatever. And now there comes like a new epoch where it's like where you can feel more confidence and willingness to shape. And I think that's important because like Europe has everything you need, right? Like they have trust, they have know-how that they generated, they have subject matter expertise, and of course, like they have an unbelievable amount of data and substance data. And when we agree that the next epoch will not be about like B2C platforms, but around B2B platforms, I do think that's actually like a play field where Europe can and should win. And my experience talking to executives in Europe is, and you mentioned Merck before, and like you can see that there is a new confidence, and I think that's the confidence that Europe needs. And coupled with like subject matter expertise, data, and trust that they have.
Do you have the feeling that, so you describe Europe as the third way between somewhere, you said China with its imperialism and the US with their disruptive culture, and there's this third European way. Maybe it's democracy and multilateralism and social democrats and stuff like that. So do you have the feeling that, our system is able to solve the large problems of the planet?
I think especially.
Like climate. We didn't talk about climate for at least 20 minutes now. So
but I know who's speaking after me, so it's like I would.
Oh yeah, the people don't. The
real expert is speaking after me.
The audience doesn't know.
No, but it's so I think yes, absolutely, because one thing is like finding the algorithm that suggests you the movie you should watch when you sit on the couch. Okay, that went to Silicon Valley. But like innovating research when it's about cancer or other diseases, that's a very complex field and thing, and you need to there are much more stakeholders involved, and doing that by protecting privacy and personal freedom. That's like I couldn't imagine who else than Europe should win that and be able to do that.
Okay. Before we come to an end, and we have a surprise guest for another 5 minutes, if you allow me to ask a very special person some questions who we learned will be here today. Can you comment on the Austrian politics? So what's your feeling about Austria these days? Just one or two.
Yeah.
So you're happy with this situation?
I think both of Sebastian, Kurz, and I think like we proved the world that it's like while many countries have like this, I don't know, like maximum age for becoming politician, we have a minimum age in Austria. No, serious. Like when I resigned 7 years ago, I promised myself that I will never comment on Austrian politics. Then I managed to find this secretive company, and almost anyway never speak. I break it now, but not when it's about commenting Austrian politics.
Okay. So thank you very much for being on stage for the third time in the last 5 years.